Hello and welcome back. In this video, we'll talk a bit about variables in Python. So basically, what are variables, what they do, and why we need variables in the first place. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so if I go to my Python interpreter, so basically here we can use Python as a simple calculator. So we can do like 5 plus 3 is equals to 8, 5 multiplied by 2 must be equals to 10, and then we can print some messages like hello world, and it will print hello world on the screen. Okay, so far so good. So let's say what we want. Let's say we 5 into 2 and we get 10. Now we want to store this value, this 10. We want to store it so that we can use it somewhere else. So in order to do that, we need some kind of you can say a container, or some kind of a thing that should point to that 10. So whenever we go we let's say uh, so we want an easy to remember, or let's say some keyword that, for example, there are a bunch of human beings on this planet. Okay, so, or maybe in your family there are different members, different people in your family. So how do you distinguish them? How do you distinguish them from one another? So basically you name them simply. Someone is Matt, someone name is Varun, like me. Someone else should be David, or anything. So we name people. Similarly, here in programming, uh, what variables does, so variables is a way to name a value. Simple, and this value can be of any type. Okay, so let's say if we say name is equals to Varun. Okay, and we press enter. Now if we want to print name, so we type name and it prints Varun. So the name here is a variable which contains a value of Varun. Okay, we can also override this value. We can change this value as well. So if I type name is equals to, let's say, Zach, press enter, and then when we reference name again, it will give back Zach, which is an updated value. So basically variables are used to store values and to access those values easily. Alright, so if you see here, the value is known as, like, say, a data, loosely speaking. So here you can say it's a number. Here it's 10, here it's some characters. So now we will look what are the different types of data, basic data types which are present in Python. So basically there are 4 data types. First one is integer, and let's give you some example of integers. Integers means like negative infinity to positive infinity, if you talk about in terms of maths. So let's say 1 is an integer, 2 is also an integer, and it can go up to a positive infinity, and also -2, -10 are also integers, and they can go to negative infinity, up to negative infinity. So positive infinity to negative infinity, just like maths. So those are integers. The second data type is string. So basically string is a combination of characters, a list of characters like A, B, C, D. These are characters, and we represent string in quotation mark. So in Python you can use single quotes and write, let's say, any gibberish and press enter. So this is a string. Again, in some language you are restricted a bit to use double quotation. For example, in Java or C or C++, you have to use double quotation for a string. But in Python, you can use any of them. You can use a single quote as well as double quote. So suit yourself, use whatever you want. Okay. Now, the third data type. Oh, okay. So before jumping on the third one, let's talk about floats. Floats are basically decimal values. Okay. So let's say 2.3 is a float. 5.6 is also a float. So any decimal value is a float. So let's talk about the third one now. Boolean. So what are Boolean? So Boolean are basically Boolean contains two types. Okay, two values. It can be either true or false. So I mean it's a little not hard but different to understand here Boolean, because I mean without any use cases you wouldn't understand. So let's say if I type true, and here's the difference. For it to be considered as Boolean, the T should be capital. So if you type true, press enter, it's a Boolean. But if you type a normal T, it will give you an error. It says name error, name true is not defined. And it is doing this because it's checking for a variable name which starts which called true with a small t. So here true is kind of a keyword in Python, so you have to give this particular attention. So if you want to use a Boolean value, if you want to let's say what's the general, let's say I mean think of an example which is true for all over the world. Let's say we wrote a variable, let's say winters are cold, and we do it as true, and we equals it at true, and then if you want, and then if you reference winters are cold, it gives us an answer as true. So Boolean are basically used I mean in conditional, and we will talk a bit about it in the future, but now just understand that we can there is a derive in Python where we can set values as true and false, and if you set it as false and if you print it out, it will give a false value. But also you have to keep in mind that the first letter of true and false should be capital if you want to if you want Python to look at it as Boolean. So if we go with and type it as false in lowercase letters, it will give us an error because name is not defined here. Yeah, one more thing you can do is, let's say name is equals to Varun, and greet, let's say, is equals to hello. Alright, and if we add both those, let's say greet plus name, we'll get hello Varun. Okay, so we can perform different types of operations on variables, and we'll talk about this as I mean in depth in our later videos. But for now, just think of variable as a container, or as a container or a pointer that points to a certain value. Okay, so let's talk about some naming convention. What should you name your variable names? Okay, so basically, I mean in programming environment there are three types of naming convention. One is snake case. Okay, here, all right, let me name it as well as a snake case. So snake case means a variable name. Let's say if you have a variable name which is which has multiple words in it, so you distinguish those words. So you just simply put a underscore between those words. So let's say my name is, okay, so you write this as by putting an underscore after every word. Okay. Right. The second is camel case. In camel case, let's say if you want to, again, same variable name, so my second word should be in capitals. So the first letter of second word should be in capital. Name is. So this is what camel case means. The third one is Pascal case, and in Pascal case we write every word as a capital. So the first letter of every word should be capital. So let's say my name is, enter. All right. So the difference between camel case and Pascal case is simply, in camel case the first letter should be small, in Pascal case the first letter should be capital as well. And the snake case a bit different, because between every two words you have to place an underscore. So you can use any type of any convention for your variable names, but you have to stick with it. Okay, so choose anyone and just stick with it. In terms of Python, there are some naming convention as well. So Puppet, an organization that deals with Python's naming convention, and what it basically does is, let's say it talks about, like, for variables and function. So for naming variables and function, you have to name it as snake case. So for example, if you see NTION function name should be in camel, should be in snake case. Variable names should also be in snake case. But when it comes to classes, again, it's a concept that we'll talk about in future. Just remember, for classes we have to use Pascal case. So the first letter should be capital, and so that's it. So I hope you've got a little bit of understanding about variables, and I hope you like this video, and we'll talk about more concepts in the near future. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a happy day.